Today is also International Women's Day, and we're honored to have two great women here to celebrate. We're doing great things in Minneapolis and the world. Gina Rautenberg is the Executive Director of the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council, and Karen Binkowski is the Manager of Business Development and Marketing for the Southwest Business Association. We're honored to have both of them here. Gina's going to talk about what she does with Linden Hills Neighborhood Council and the exciting things planned for the future, and Karen's going to talk about what's going on with Southwest Business Association and how they're supporting small businesses and all the exciting things planned for the future. So really excited to have you both here. So let's connect and let's get started. Wanted to ask both of you, can you just tell us all a little bit about the work you're doing here? You with the Neighborhood Council in Linden Hills, and you with Southwest Business Association. Start with Gina.
Sure, absolutely. Hi everyone, I'm Gina Rautenberg, as Eric said. The Linden Hills Neighborhood Council is the local neighborhood association for the community of Linden Hills. The city of Minneapolis funds neighborhood organizations for all 84 neighborhoods across the city, and so we receive a small bit of annual funding from the city, and our job is to communicate, kind of be a two-way communication vehicle for the city of Minneapolis to Linden Hills business owners and residents, and then for those same business owners and residents back to the city of Minneapolis. So that's our primary goal, and then in addition to that, we have a lot of local programming, events, and just trying to make it feel like a more inclusive and robust place to live and work.
That's great.
Great.
It's a great neighborhood, and you're doing great things.
Yeah.
Great. Right, so, as Eric said, I'm Karen Binkowski with the Business Association. We're a nonprofit founded in 2006. We're membership-based, governed by a volunteer board of directors, and our function is really to support small businesses located in Southwest Minneapolis. So our district is 32nd and 36th Street down to 62, and then 35W to France Avenue South. We support small businesses in a number of ways. We are a conduit for them with the city, so we can help them with any number of issues from licensing, permitting. We've in the past helped to change regulations that have really been more of a burden on the small businesses than they need to be. We're also a city provider for grants. So we are successfully, we've had the facade improvement grant for a long time, and we work with individual businesses to offset the cost to beautify the front of their businesses. We also have a BTAC grant, which we generally focus, it's for technical assistance. We focus it a lot on marketing. We found with individual businesses and the constraints they're facing right now, that's been really helpful for them to help drive traffic. We're also a network connection, for them, so we connect them with local community associations such as neighborhood associations, and also with other small business owners, and just in a roundabout way really try to support and promote our small business community, which is much larger than most people assume. We actually have more businesses than Mall of America when you think about the number of businesses we have here, so it's huge.
How would you say this for both of you? Businesses going, coming out of the pandemic, it was tough for a lot of small businesses. How would you say the climate is for local businesses today in the Southwest Minneapolis, Linden Hills?
I think, it's still tough. It depends, on the business and where it's located. They're still struggling a bit with, having people come out and shop, because I think they're used to shopping a lot online still. And then obviously I think what's, just as much of an issue for them is all of the road construction that's going on, and how that impedes, with lack of parking and with residents and visitors not understanding, what is available to shop in. It's something actually that Gina and I have been talking about and working on together.
What are some of those plans and ideas that you have, how to kind of reinvigorate, get people out more?
Well, we're so glad you asked. One of the things that Karen and I connected on is there's going to be a pretty large closure of the primary intersection at 43rd and Upton beginning in May and continuing for at least 10 weeks, if not longer, into the summer. And so that's going to be really, really challenging for local businesses who already have a parking challenge here. And so Karen and I had talked about that a few weeks ago, and we shared a plan that the council has been coming up with to do a sort of an online campaign to encourage non-car activity into and out of Linden Hills during this closure. So I sometimes like to think of how can I help individually with this, and I am somebody who sometimes drives to Suttergrins even though I live 5 blocks away, even if it's something like a small bag of screws I need. So just recognizing this isn't the time for me to be driving there. Take an extra 10, 15 minutes, walk there, walk back, get some exercise, take a lap around the rest of the neighborhood as well. And so we really extrapolated that into what we hope will be a bigger campaign where folks who walk into the businesses, there will be a QR code at each of the individual businesses that they can scan to enter into a giveaway for gift cards and other prizes if they have not taken a car to get into Linden Hills.
That's great.
Yeah, and so Karen and I have been speaking on that and trying to figure out how we could fund it to ensure that the businesses that are already burdened by this closure aren't also responsible for the gift cards that will be giving away. So we want to make sure that this is something that's just a net benefit to them, even despite of kind of the real challenge of the street closure that they'll be facing.
So the business association, we will be sponsoring it financially, and then also helping to execute it, working with the small businesses. And for the business association, this is a direction we're really excited to take. In the past, especially with the funding that we're able to secure through the city, it generally has to be spent on individual businesses. And we are seeing a need to work on marketing our nodes, so these major shopping intersections, and this is the perfect opportunity to try something like this where we can use some of our funding to support this initiative and see, how if this really does help with the loss of traffic and help them generate sales.
Definitely. You mentioned funding. How is funding going for you guys, and how do you get funding?
Well, yeah, for funding for us, so it's membership based. And certainly with the pandemic, we definitely saw an attrition in our membership. So my job, I've been with the association for a year. I've been working very hard to try and build that membership base up. And so with the more members we have, the more work we can do. And then also, again, we secure funding through grants, which then we spend with our businesses. So they don't go necessarily to our operating costs. They go directly to our businesses. And then we do also secure some sponsorships and donations, which helps.
Nice. Mm-hmm. How many businesses are in the association today?
Right now, we have about 120. And our goal is to grow it by at least another 50.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And how do you work together? Has this partnership, evolved? How long have you guys been working together?
Well, I think the Linden Hills Business Association, is that the correct name, I believe, for it, was kind of folded into the Southwest Business Association a few years ago. Is that correct?
Yep.
So I think we had been working with the Linden Hills Business Association for a long time to do what we could for them, and then as it got folded into the Southwest Business Association, we're continuing that work as well. But Karen and I just connected maybe a month ago at this point, 3 weeks ago for the first time. We are immediate kindred spirits, ideas flowing back and forth. So it feels like much longer.
And I've been in this position for a year now, but before that, my position was open for a year as well. And I'm the only staffed position with the Business Association. I'm actually a contractor. So I have also spent this past year making connections, building relationships, sort of going one by one through the neighborhood associations. Mm-hmm. And with everything that's upcoming, the road construction that's going on with Linden Hills, this was the perfect opportunity for us to connect and dive right into a project.
Definitely. What role do you both see, collaborations and partnerships with businesses and also the community neighbors? How do you see that role advancing the goals of both organizations?
Well, the Business Association, we actually just secured a grant from the city called the Business District Support Grant, and it has to be implemented with the community. So the grant that we have secured is, the biggest piece of it is going to be used for informational packets. It's a pilot program that we designed, and that will be partnering with all of the neighborhood associations. That will be delivering to all 520 storefronts, plus all of the businesses that exist within some of our office buildings, so this Center for Performing Arts, for example, that's in Kingfield, it's one storefront, but she has 40 tenants. So there's a number of spaces like that, not quite that large, but across Southwest Minneapolis. And with that information, it'll be specific, so based on industry and also based on location. So it would have any business in Linden Hills, would have Gina's contact information in it and sort of what kind of opportunities they provide. And that's definitely a new direction because I think, we're designed to support the businesses, the neighborhood associations are designed to sort of support the residents, but really, it's the same thing in our opinion. You need both to survive. So the direction for sure going forward is a lot more partnership and sharing of resources. And
That's great.
yeah, so this is going to be another great project coming down the pike.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you kind of work with the city? Is it always you going to the city, or do they sometimes come to you with ideas about how you can, kind of spark and revitalize kind of business districts?
Well, I'll say for the example of the closure that's happening at 43rd and Upton, it's been a fascinating kind of domino effect because I think Metro Transit has a need to install 2 new bus stops in that corridor, and at the same time, Minneapolis Public Works needs to replace 100-year-old clay pipes underneath that intersection, and so they were going about that work separately, but had engaged the City Council Vice President, Linnea Palmisano, who's our representative here in Linden Hills, and she worked with them to say, this is going to be, a real challenge for that intersection. Let's do all that work together. And once that plan was starting to come together, she came to us and asked if they could come present at a neighborhood board meeting, which they did. And from there, that connected me to Karen. So it does feel like there's a lot of potential for each of those links. If we aren't all in a partnership together, if any of those links break, it could be really, really difficult for us to pull off really solid community building work in our neighborhood. But right now, I do feel like there is a real spirit of collaboration and partnership because so many budgets are being slashed everywhere that everybody's sort of like, what can we do to all stay connected with one another and to make sure that things don't get lost, or that, a really solid way to turn this from a challenge into an opportunity isn't missed.
That's great. Speaking of opportunities, can you highlight a few success stories, from the Southwest Business Association over the past few months or years, and likewise with the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council, in Linden Hills neighborhood, anything come to mind, you want to highlight, any success stories?
Well, sure. I mean, a success story that I love to share, and actually was, spearheaded by our board treasurer, who's here in the audience, Roger Worm. We have, and it's still so relevant because we have a number of secondhand stores here in Southwest Minneapolis, and we have a lot more that are opening as well. We've had 2 open in the last 6 months. And when if you go to the corner of 50th and Xerxes in Fulton, you'll see there's a plethora of them right there. And it's, for a long time, there was a very high fee that they had to have. It was for cash registers, correct, Roger? Where
there was 2 kinds of fees. The secondhand stores used to be what was under the pawn shop rules.
So
and you couldn't have a secondhand store next to each other for 1,000 feet. And then you had to become a, can't remember the name of it, but you had to pay $400 to be something. And when you had a store with 5 owners in it, each owner had to pay $300.
And so if you think about that, these aren't pawn shops, these are secondhand stores. And this is really important because it's, environmentally responsible, it's socially conscious to, to reuse. And it's very important to consumers right now. So Roger helped change the regulations for that and bring down the cost for these secondhand stores to do business, because essentially they aren't pawn shops.
Down to $65 per storefront.
Wow.
So
That's
huge
great.
savings. And he's also done that with our signs as well, the cost of being able to repaint a sign. So the Business Association has been able to be effective in a number of ways for that, to bring down regulation costs. And then also, success stories we see as well is with what we can do with our BTAP spend. So being able to go into a small business and spend money with them to help with marketing. So a program I'm working on right now with one of our small businesses is it's a butcher, and it's third generation, and he's lost 80% of his business used to come from EBT, and also now most of his business comes from his food truck. So I've been working with the owner to get his EBT, get him posted on the EBT app, because it turns out that things have changed. It's not just about having a sign in your shop as well, but also developing a promotional card with him. So when he goes out with his food truck, he can hand out this card to his food truck customers to come in for a discount into his shop. So to try and pull where he's getting his primary business. This is something he never would have had the time to come up with. He's been, he lives and breathes this business, or the funding to do himself. So that's just one example of one of the many programs we're doing. And I like to think, these small targeted programs are really helping as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Any, success stories or kind of initiatives that went really well recently?
Yeah. Yes, there's one that was actually just announced yesterday. It was one of the biggest things that the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council has taken on in, I would say, decades. We have pretty limited annual funding that comes from the city. It's $20,000, and that's what it will be for kind of in perpetuity. But we also have a legacy funding source called NRP Funds Neighborhood Revitalization Program. Those funds were provided to all the neighborhood associations back in the 90s, and they were earmarked for specific strategies that the associations had to input into their neighborhood. And one of them was there's a large funding source for affordable housing. And as you can expect, in a neighborhood like Linden Hills, it's really challenging to create affordable housing here because the lots are so expensive themselves. And so we have been sitting on some of that money for over 30 years at this point, trying to find the right way to spend these affordable housing dollars. And in December of this year, we were approached by the Lindale Neighborhood Association. If you're familiar with the Wells Fargo site that burned down at 30th and Nicollet, the Project for Pride and Living, has been working to create an affordable housing site there with 110 affordable housing units, and then BIPOC-owned businesses on the ground floor, including then also a Wells Fargo site. And it was many tens of $1 million project that was actually put in jeopardy due to unexpected interest rates, and so they were facing a budget shortage of just $500,000, even though they had already fundraised and figured out how to earn many tens of millions. I won't remember the exact number. And so 7 neighborhood organizations came together, pooled some of that legacy funding money for affordable housing for a total donation of $250,000 to help close that gap. And it is now in motion. They're able to apply for the loan, and it's expected that it will close and go through. And so we're extraordinarily proud of that. It was a $25,000 donation from the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council, and it was also the first step, we think, to creating more of an affordable housing collective among all of these neighborhood associations, where we could continue to do work with this funding source that has just been thorny and difficult to use over the last 35 years.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Linden Hills Neighborhood Council is a neighborhood association. They've been around a long time, many decades. It's a very engaging community, but how do you continue to engage the community and, kind of gather their input, listen to their needs? How is that going? How do you, keep them engaged?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We found that it actually was much easier in COVID. We were running constant Zoom sessions because everybody had nothing but time. We're like, here they all are. And then obviously as the world has kind of, resurfaced, everyone is busy again, which is understandable. So we've made a lot of tweaks to our communications over the last few years. We did move everything online. Now we have everything as a hybrid option when we run meetings, so people can attend in person to our monthly board or committee meetings, or they can always attend via Zoom. And then I would say the other best channel that we found so far has been social media. Instagram is actually a really great use for us. We get a ton of engagement on Instagram. And I do think that that's partially due to how much the neighborhood is turning over right now. There's a lot of like younger families coming into the neighborhood, and so we're starting to realize they're maybe not on Facebook as much, they're on Instagram, like, so we're just trying to follow where are the folks, and we have, 5,000 people on Facebook, 2,000 on Instagram, an email list of 2,500. So we feel like we're doing a good job, and yet we know that there are gaps in our communications that we're always trying to fill as well.
How do you think, this for both of you, how do you think you can get more people engaged, community members and businesses? I'm sure you want more, how do you think, or what are some creative ways you think that could happen? Or you have any in the works?
Yeah, I mean, this past year, I've worked really hard to build relationships and partnerships, one of which is with the Southwest Connector, who's a sponsor of ours, and that's been huge. So we've been able to, we published our first quarterly column in October, and the next one's coming out in March, and we're big proponents of the Connector being a local paper, and the excellent reporting. And then also, again, partnering more with neighborhood associations, this new informational packet that we're piloting that I think is going to be critical because not only will we hit all of the businesses once, but then we're going to be hitting every new business that comes in and trying to get to them sooner by also delivering to building owners. So when the building owners know of somebody who's signed a lease, we can start working with them that much earlier, especially with a grant program like the Facade Improvement Grant. And then we're also going to be putting a new emphasis based on some business district support funding on our social media as well, because that's just such a growing point of communication.
Nice.
And in person always helps too.
That's
Like
what I
just
was
pounding the
about to say.
pavement.
Yeah.
Roger has helped me with this tremendously, making introductions, and it always, it's best just to go in and say hi, and get to know people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I've noticed the most as well. My predecessor was in this role as the executive director of the council for, I think, 7.5 years. So she knew everyone intimately, was kind of absolutely beloved, and was incredible at her job. And so a lot of what she was passing on to me was like, and you can just reach out to them. They always do this. And I slowly realized they will always do that for you. They need to know who I am. I am a different person, and I don't want to make any assumptions that their previous support will continue. And I want to make sure that when I'm walking down the street, they know who I am as well. And so it has been, I was at such an advantage to have her connections and the ability, a list of folks that she thought I should reach out to and get to know. And then I did have to take a step back and realize I don't have the same level of relationship that she did with them. And I actually do need to start over, even though the council has strong ties with them. Their ties are not to me yet. And hopefully I can continue to develop those so that someday when I pass it on to the next person, I can give them that same advice. They are friendly to us, and also you need to walk in the door and shake their hand.
Well, and having worked with Gina, I can say you'll be excellent at that, so she won't have trouble. Very personable. Yeah.
Nice. The audience, we have a wonderful audience here today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask during this conversation. But I think you raise an interesting point and a very important point. It's all about connection, human connection. I think just rediscovering that. Do you have any kind of ideas for in-person events? Creative ways that we could, bring the community together, today and in the future. Because I think with some of the issues in the city, people, have different levels of comfort going out, being in person, for health reasons, for public safety reasons, all these kind of things. How have you heard any ideas on how, to overcome those issues? Solutions, come up with solutions for those issues and challenges.
I mean, I think it's sort of what we've been talking about with the Walk, Bike, Roll program that Gina's developing, and that, we want to sponsor. We will be sponsoring. A lot, as we've been talking ideas, is about how to make it about family. So I think anything that involves kids, is a great way to get people out. But also what I have learned over this past year as well is trying to support what's already in progress. There's so many wonderful events like Art on the Edge. I know that Everett and Susie puts on every year. There's Kite Festival. There's so many things that are already have a following, and I think as the business association for us, it's a priority this year to find out more about these and figure out how we can support them and help promote, shoppers to come to those.
Yes, Roger.
Last thing you might want to remember is we support the 5th precinct get-together every year.
Yes, we do. So the Business Association sponsors that every year, and what we do is we help secure funding for that. So we go to our member businesses, and they'll support with food donations or financial donations, and it's in May every year. We're awaiting the details, but that's very family friendly, and it's a way as well for businesses and residents to come meet police officers, hear a little bit about what they're doing, and socialize. So I'll be sharing more about that for sure.
Hey, Susie.
I'm really loving this walk, bike, roll thing to get going, so I'm gonna meet with the two of you and talk about that more later. But one of my first requests is there any way we can get some temporary or permanent more bike racks around the area? I requested one out here, and I actually met with the city a couple of years ago. And
Yeah.
said, oh yeah, there's room right here, you can put it in, you know, but it's a substantial amount financially. And we're really lacking, especially in 43rd here.
Did they, was that to go on the street or the sidewalk?
Sidewalk.
The sidewalk, okay.
Yep.
Well, we can definitely chat more about that
Yeah.
after this.
That would be helpful.
Yeah. And I know that we have, Susie, so funny you brought that up. I was going through for a different project all the meeting minutes for the last 5 years, so I knew about the bike racks that were supposed to be here and was meaning to reach out to you to ask why aren't they here. We have that legacy funding source that I talked about earlier. It has little pockets of money reserved for certain purposes, and we do have some outstanding money from many years ago bookmarked for bike racks, so we can discuss whether or not it would be possible for them to be installed, temporarily for that closure. I'm not sure,
Right.
but certainly with an intention of permanency. Yes, there's money available for that, and I think the city also. From what I understand, the reason why we have so much money still in that fund is that every time we put in a bike rack, the city matches it. So there's there's a bike matching grant of some sort, or bike rack matching grant. So let's talk more about that and figure it out.
Another thing is trash cans on the street too.
Yeah. There's not.
No.
Interesting. That was really interesting. Yeah. Fabulous. I forget what was your original question prior? Were you looking for anything from me or?
No, I mean, I think it was,
Yeah.
some of the challenges in the city and
Right.
how do we deal with
Yeah.
them?
And I think you brought up like events for families, and one thing we're noticing is there's also a need for folks who are, maybe empty nesters or didn't have children or single renters. Like there's so many different demographics in our neighborhood, and we want to be sure that we're reaching each of those demographics. So we try our best to partner, as you said, like when an event pops up, if somebody's putting it on Art on the Edge, the wine and stroll event that happens in the district, whatever it may be, we try our best to be a part of it, recognizing that it's meeting a need of the community that has already been identified and kind of validated, and then trying to figure out what other events we might be able to do on our very small budget of time and financial resources to fill the gaps that maybe aren't being addressed yet.
I saw there's another question here.
Yes, well, I don't live in Linden Hills, but this place has been like a magnet for me for all these years, and especially, especially during pandemic, during COVID. I would like to acknowledge what Susie at Garden Brasserie did here for so many of us who are sitting alone at home. And yes, I would like to continue coming back to Linden Hills, and I'm very inspired by everything you heard. Yes, I would like to mention something. Thanks to the connector, an idea that I started about the communal table spread around, the idea spread around, and initially we were here at Harriet Brasserie, and a lot of people were coming, mostly my age and older perhaps. Yes, Catherine came as well. There's so much need for social connection, tremendous need, yet we're not able to do it at Harriet Brasserie because we linger too long. We want to be together for too long, so it doesn't work well with the business model of the restaurant.
Yeah.
So we were forced to move to Gigi's on 36th and Bryant. And to my absolute amazement, Gigi is the ideal place for social connection. We need something like this here at Linden Hills, so I don't have to go to the 36th Street. Gigi's Cafe, I don't know how familiar you are with it, and I don't know how they make it possible from business point of view, but this is the heart of the community, of the neighborhood. It's very welcoming. It looks a little bit like this, only there are tables. I mean, all the walls are covered with the work of people who live in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yes, the price, I mean, the food is organic, ingredients coming from local farms, all is made from scratch on site. The staff is super friendly. You can sit there forever and talk.
Yeah.
We need something like this in Linden Hills.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up. First of all, Gigi's is a member of ours, the Business Association, and I actually live a block away and recently purchased my first piece of art from Gigi's. So I love it, and yes, it is very welcoming, but I would love to announce for you that there is a new restaurant opening up here in Linden Hills, likely in April. They're in the old Clancy space, so it's going to be called Picnic, and they are already a member of the Business Association. The owners are incredible, and they do have their liquor license, so they will be able to serve drinks like Brasserie and Gigi's. And the whole concept is it's a family-friendly neighborhood spot, and they're going to have very extensive hours as well, so you'll be able to stay late, come early. So if you stay tuned for that, I think you are going to find yourself a new neighborhood hangout spot here in Linden Hills. And the food is going to be spectacular from what I've heard. So that will be open for sure this spring. But please don't stop frequenting Gigi's as well, because it is great. And also, just to give another plug for another member, Clancy's moved to Kingfield. So they're at 38th and Grand. She has a lot of seating. She's serving breakfast now, and also happy hour daily. So you should definitely also give that a try. And obviously, as you know, her food is delicious and organic and made local. And the bread is fresh daily from Patisserie 46, supporting another local business. So.
Well, every neighborhood deserves a Gigi.
Yeah. Well, I'll certainly pass that along. Thank you.
That's all exciting stuff. The importance of connection, I think, raises a great point. And one thing you mentioned earlier was about family and kids. What kind of work do both of you do with the school and young people, to kind of connect them and engage them? Is there any kind of special initiatives that you've done in the past or that you have in mind for the future?
Sure, we do several things throughout the year. Let me think about it. The Linden Hills Fall Festival is a really family-friendly event. It's held at the Linden Hills Park, so it's adjacent to the playground. Then there's a big beer garden, food trucks, vendors like balloon artists and bubbles and all of the fun stuff, face painters and all the things that kids love. And then humongous bounce houses, 3 of them in a row that take up the majority of the field. So that's a really fun day for the kids in the neighborhood. And then the business district here organizes something called Reindeer Day every December, where kids and their grown-up parents or grandparents or friends bring them into each different business, and there's a Santa visit, there's, Susie, what did you have this year? Do you have Coco and the pop-up photographer?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
We did that.
It's like a fun backdrop of photography. The dog shop had make your own dog bandana, like decorate your own dog bandanas and things like that at Co-Pilot Dog Outfitters. So it's a really fun day. It's very weather dependent. We've had 2 bizarre years of like -10 where it was very difficult for people to come because kids didn't want to walk down the street. And last year, or obviously this winter, it was I think 45 and there were almost too many people. So it's a complicated event in that way, but a really fun one. And then last, this is something I'm really proud of, is there was a new playground installed at Linden Hills Park in August of 2021, and the equipment was at a much smaller scale than what had been there in the past for the last 2 iterations of playground equipment. And it happened right as the world was starting to open up a little bit for kids to be able to play outside, and so it launched with a little bit of like a fizzle. And so the Linden Hills neighborhood council fundraised and earned about $68,000 in private donations, which we then topped off, and we split those donations between the Linden Hills Playground and then one in Near North, which was also facing a budget shortfall where they couldn't afford as much playground equipment. And so we were able to install a ton of stuff at the Near North Playground, which we were really excited about, and then the Linden Hills Playground is getting a little bit of a facelift and upgrade this spring. So we're kind of, there are a lot of kids in this neighborhood, and I think the demographic is growing kind of by the day as a lot of the houses turnover. So it's something we're really keen to support.
That's great. Sound like doing a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Any things in the works, like working with schools, entrepreneurial training? Any ideas like that?
We're not there in that sense. I look at it more about what could benefit our members. And I'm certainly have discussed with some of them about potentially working with PTOs. I've seen success with schools promoting discount nights with local restaurants, where they promote going to a restaurant on a certain night and 20% of the revenue then goes back to the schools. And certainly for some of the newer restaurants or the struggling ones, that's an opportunity to sort of let residents know they're there and help with their traffic. So that's about the extent of what we would do with schools for now. But certainly something we can consider down the road.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think schools now, especially with the budgets, where they are and budget cuts, anyway, business can work together, community can work together. To support the schools is a great idea. Before we close, is there, anything else you want to share about all the great work you both are doing, to build community, strengthen community, how people can get involved and connect more? I think, you mentioned a lot of great things today, but anything else you want to share?
I think it's really wonderful to meet people like Gina. We're both residents. We both come to our roles with much different experience, and I think that brings like a fresh set of eyes. And I just hope that we can grow the profile of these, associations as nonprofits, and that we're here to support the community, we're here to support the residents and our businesses. And I'm just really excited for what we're going to be able to do in the future together.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, in addition to agree 100%, and then in terms of the neighborhood associations and Southwest Business Association, there are sort of every organization is undergoing a lot of budget cuts right now. So the funding is really tight. It's becoming a massive challenge. And so what we're really trying to talk about as folks offer us ideas is to say, thank you for the idea. Will you also help us execute it? And that is a much higher, it's a much bigger ask. We recognize that not everyone is in a position to do that, but I do think the work of creating and sustaining and building a community does require everyone to get involved. And so there are so many fantastic ideas out there, and then in our neighborhood, at least I can speak for us, we really need folks who also will then go from idea to execution. And so we're always looking for volunteer, whether you want to be a full-fledged board member and come to meetings weekly and monthly, or to roll up your sleeves and help us out at an event once or twice a year. We'll take any help we can get, but that's kind of our biggest priority right now is ensuring that we're able to do all of the work that people are hopeful that we will do.
And to that point, also it makes me think of membership. I mean, it's something that I'm always so focused on, growing us back to pre-pandemic numbers, and to get the word out there to our small business community that our membership is very affordable. It's $195 a year or $17 a month. And with that, you get support from myself, you get support from the board when needed, you get access to all of our education and no-cost opportunities, our grants, and the more members we have, the more work we can do. So membership for sure would be something I'd always want to push.
Yes.
Actually, two questions. One is, so as far as volunteering and becoming a member, how does one do that? And then the second part of my question, I moved into Linden Hills last summer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really attracted me to this area is the beautiful trolley pathway that we have.
Yes.
And I had heard discussion about extending that, and I think that you might your organization is involved in that?
Yes,
Can you
yes.
provide an update on that?
I can, yes. So to answer your first question, how to get involved, our website is lindenhills.org, and there are a few different ways you can get involved. You can sign up to volunteer. Just come speak to me. I'll give you all the information after this. You're top of my list now. But there's also we will have some upcoming. Like there is always board elections every fall. So if you want to be a volunteer board member, that requires a monthly commitment to attend our board meeting and then to be on one committee that meets monthly as well. So that's sort of the top level of commitment. And then there is a new path that I always want to plug. We have started a community projects committee where if you have an example, like let's say, and Susie, you could do this, but if it were a community member who said, I want bike racks outside of Everett and Charlie, so that you don't have to do the work. It could be a community member who says, I want more bike racks. How do we do that? And they would work through our community projects committee to execute on that. And so right now we have in the works a blood drive, an Earth Day event, a kids bike helmet safety event. So these are all things that are actually being, as I just said, like not only identified as opportunities for the neighborhood, but also the folks asking us if we could do it, they're the ones pulling it off with a good amount of administrative and helpful support from me and our board. So if you have ideas about things you want to work on, you could come through the Community Projects Committee.
I learned a lot.
Yes. And then to answer your question about the trolley path extension, so right now we have been maintaining the trolley path naturescape for many years, and the work to extend it is, I won't say on pause, but just the board member who is in charge of it got a big new job in the fall, so he is working to kind of restart those efforts this spring. And he's been in conversation with Linnea Palmisano, the City Council, the City of Minneapolis, and the Minneapolis Parks Board to determine how they might extend it. It is a really thorny, hairy issue because it involves like taking away parking spaces and the trash can alley behind the barber shop and all kinds of things that are like extraordinarily not sexy, but very important to the certain businesses that are adjacent to that trolley path. And so I would just say the work is ongoing, but we're just sort of chipping away at it slowly. The end goal of this, which would be, I think, a many decades long project, would actually be to extend the trolley path all the way down back to the lake where it was before, as sort of it would include a trolley path park and sort of if you're familiar with like Mill Ruins Park or something like that, where it really offers a more complete picture of what the trolley path used to look like and how important it was to the development of this neighborhood. So that's the final plan, and it's going to involve us chipping away block by block over many years.
Do you own a small business?
No, I do not.
Well,
Not yet.
not yet.
We've had some conversations.
Oh, okay, that's exciting. Yeah.
Well, great question and great answers. Thank you both. I think the point block by block, that's what it's going to take. Rebuilding the city. This is a great city. There's a lot of great things going on.
Yeah.
Thank you all for all the great work you do. And I think it's a really important point to just encourage people to get out, support local businesses, get connected, volunteer, give what you can, spend money in local businesses, volunteer, just get involved. This is a great city. There's a lot of great things going on. And just really encourage your friends and family and neighbors to get out, get involved, get connected. That's the whole idea of here. We want to thank our audience for joining us today. I want to thank our wonderful guests, Gina Rautenberg, Karen Binkowski.
Thank you.
You guys are doing great work. Thank you. And I want to thank our host here at Everett and Charlie, Susie. Thank you. Our next Let's Connect event is going to be on May 3rd. It will be at the Worth. In the Woods. It's part of Ecumen, a senior living facility. And our guest will be Lee Strasberg, going to be talking. He's from General Transitions, talking about anyone who's interested in moving, making that an easier transition. That'll be part of our theme for the month of June is going to be living well for 50 and over. And so there's a lot of opportunities for 50 and over, but for all ages. People of all ages to connect and have a great time and build community in this great city. So thank you, Gina. Thank you, Karen. And thank you all. Have a nice day.